comes off the back of finishing last in the German Grand Prix, something that he says he's never experienced in his entire career, and he sounded... when that exhaust gets hot. And we got 45 minutes of second free practice alongside me. I think actually, as Sylvain mentioned, you've got to get track time while you can here in what I suppose are relatively dry.
Them to try and get direct qualification through to Q2, but you also need to understand the tyres. There's 4 rear tyres on the allocation this week on this new surface, so it's really an important session to grab as many laps as you can while the track's in a dry condition.
Hey there.
5 years ago.
Subscribe to my channel.
What's he got
and also
on the Honda this weekend? He's you wanted to go right back to the start and begin again, wasn't it?
Yeah, we saw a shot this morning. The Dorna cameraman zoomed in and said it was a new. And Mugello, he's stuck to his 2019 machine essentially. Went back to what he knew, and now he's putting in the parts together and get the best package.
Fabio Quartararo heads out onto the circuit. As do, of course, let's not forget, picked up a podium last time. Perhaps he might not have expected that before the race, but it's 131 championship, so down to Maverick Vinales, and then of course Miguel Oliveira now up into 7th in the championship now, leading the championship. You just keep doing that and you'll be good.
Yeah, but also he's aware, obviously we've got this summer break coming up, but the Yamaha doesn't have it. Turns well, it stops well, but out and out top speed it lacks a little bit, where he loses points to his rivals.
On board with Johann Zarco, his closest challenger in the championship. You do think about third and a second, could have won one of those two, or could have won both of them, but you know, Ducati will likely go well. KTM with Zarco, with Miller and Bagnaia, but I reckon Martin will probably get in the mix. I can see it suiting the second race in Doha, for example.
Right. Yeah, you're right there. That's a really good. That's an early call, but
Quartararo season, as we go on board with him this year, Michael, is that his bad day this year was Jerez. He was 5th in the opener in Qatar. When it came, it could have been a podium. But his worst days aren't the last year we were talking about.
Was the opening round of Qatar when he finished 5th. So every race after that, the 13th in Jerez was due to arm pump. The 6th in Qatar makes the difference. That consistency, that ability to put the lap time in, but also to fight, to make overtakes, because he does have to find his way past Ducatis. And that
finding the consistency, finding the speed at every single race. What do you think that Fabio's doing differently, not only in comparison to
going on? So these bikes were turned down a little bit and they didn't have him revving as hard, so there was that issue in the background as well, which I think it was because you're turning the motorcycle essentially down all the time. You've then got to try and make your lap time more by carrying corner speed, and that is much certainly not from Fabio. We are hearing grip issues though from Maverick Vinales.
0.1 fastest already in this session. Petrucci of 34.5, which I suppose, considering the condition, and Vinales turns it, Quartararo should I say, turns it on that back wheel as they 4.0. Similar conditions actually in this session already as Vinales.
It's handling literally like a shopping trolley. That front wheel is just flapping around everywhere, and I'd see him, it looks...
Yeah, do you remember the 2019 race here? Where Rins crashed out the lead, Mir ran a little bit wide, but then you remember Quartararo, wasn't it?
Yeah, that tank slap.
It was like the wind or everything, or all things combining weren't helping the front. But I've seen him do it a couple.
Off the curves.
You can see it then,
you can see the bike is just on the edge of that type of head shake. The Ducatis as well, which are typically quite a stable bike, on the fast places that are probably making the instability a little bit more pronounced. So also on this track you use the curbs quite a lot. Here it just has the bike ever so slightly on the edge.
And also
towards
press this
the
bell icon.
flat left-hander of the Bulls, 1911, Van der Veen, Delco Slope. And you have to get good pace through those double apex rights, because your pace then brought
a lot of commitment.
Interesting 6th gear through there actually for Miguel Oliveira when he came through the right-hander.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I've stood trackside and steer on a kind of a high revving gear, and then other riders would go one extra upshift, that short shifter right through it on the
Oliveira, and when he puts the harder tyres in front or rear,
that's a huge off for Marquez. All rights we're talking about. Oh my goodness me, that is actually
and you're turning, but your partial throttle, he's got up a gear, a little bit of throttle, but
you don't see many crashes out of the back of the shop.
Yeah, and he's trying to build, I tell you, he's turning Gav with a little bit of throttle, but that's let go. You know, you jump on another manufacturer that's having much bigger issues.
And
I don't think Marquez's crash was to do with rain.
I was about to ask you that.
I don't think it was, because nobody was slung. One of the answers to, well, why would he flick him like that? Like Michael said, normally the way the traction control's designed,
He shifts up to third, or you generally do as you build between the two corners, so it should be second up to third. Listen, it's only
Suddenly grabbing, it's got traction and it gradually lets go. He's a strange one, and Santi Hernandez will be wanting to listen to those, because we were intently, all of us, turning up our YouTube's either side of it, baffled. So meanwhile, Maverick
with some very talented riders throughout his career as a crew chief, but for him to say how good Garrett Gerloff is the whole time through that crash. Yeah.
Could they put a screen a bit easier for Jack to see? It looked like he was having to look vertically up to see all of them discussing the race afterwards. And I did like some of the comments from Jack there, where he was talking openly to the other riders, how impressed.
The level of engineers to work, especially the data on the data side of things. So you actually had the best equipment.
Suzuki, people are suggesting he might be underperforming and under pressure. In terms of contract, how
you sign the contract and it ends after the last race of 2022. That's the contract that he signed.
But Vinales was one of them. The Jorge Lorenzo being sacked by Ducati when he just went on and won the race the next week. And we've seen people go a little, actually, let's hang on, let's not rush into anything here. Let's not write Petrucci off, because you know that on a day like this, Danilo Petrucci, what was it, 9 points you said, that Oliveira had picked up in the first 5 races of the year. So I feel like it's
an Aprilia for another season in 250, so if KTM adopt that kind of a plan with Raul, sign him on a contract that he probably would continue to develop for another season in there, so there's nothing career development.
The problem Raul Fernandez has, sorry Gavin, I just to jump in, is Raul Fernandez is clearly incredible, because we know Brad Binder signed a 3-year deal, and Miguel Oliveira is currently the hottest property in MotoGP. You're not only signing to join Hervé's incredible satellite Tech 3 team, but you could get stuck there for 2 years.
As we go ahead, I'm going to stop you right there, because Silvan's complaining in my ear that he's getting wet because he stood outside the KTM garage, and he's going to...
For a couple of years now, riders have been using the carbon brakes even in the wet. So as you can see there, look, these carbon brakes and pads would work. Reminder, the carbon brakes, we need at least 200 degrees, 250 degrees for them to stop, so the riders can, enjoy the lightness, the advantages of a lighter unsprung mass.
Lecuona's been fast, he's done a 48. But Gerloff has definitely been the fastest through, so I've seen it. I'll keep my eye on it.
It's at the finish line, basically, so we only get their fastest lap up on our screens. So.
And I can't multitask, so I've got to, if I've got one job, I'm looking at lap time.
So I'll tell you what, Michael, we need to set a task at the start. Neil, what you need to do...
Yeah, tell me what, just give me one job. I'll do it well.
Do you want a biscuit for this?
I do, yes. I will.
Alex,
I take bribes.
Alex, at the bottom of what happened with him and Petrucci in the race.
Well, actually, Petrucci blamed Lecuona for the whole incident, so he said it was the move from Iker. But I agree with you, Gav. I think we've seen a few signs when Alex was in there following his brother Mark around at Sachsenring. It definitely looked at those crashes knocking his confidence. So it was good to see some signs of that return to form.
All out on Jack Miller and Pecco Bagnaia currently in the pits too, as is Aleix Espargaro. Everyone else is out on the Assen. Few spots in the air, but we don't think that was related to Marquez, who was launched off the, in inverted commas, okay from it. Going on board with Valentino Rossi, who's experienced. Look at the concentration on his eyes. Got to love a clear visor in these situations.
It's intense. Kind of ride a motorcycle that's got 300 brake horsepower in the wet, and it's your first few laps, because you are actually trying
recently.
No, the Yamaha's a funny one. It's got good rear contact, so initially whenever you go out, you're struggling to generate that kind of flowing line, stay on the side of the tyre a little bit too long, and that's where the V4s can kind of stop, a little bit of lean angle, and then...
We haven't had this for a while, have we? A ride on board with Valentino Rossi. He used to hate that camera looking up at him. Just having the camera looking up at his face, but...
I love that camera.
That's great.
Telly, look, I want telly.
So our new wet weather times, the top of the board, it is...
So doing more than one thing
wrong,
at the same time.
Wrong.
Equal
Lecuona's done a 44.
All right, I missed that one. Sorry, Neil.
Rossi, he made that look like it's all about being relaxed on the bike in these conditions. It looked it, didn't it?
It is. It's about letting the bike do it. Normally, any opportunity he gets to go out in iffy conditions, he'd be straight out.
Not new Jack. Not new, Jack.
Not new,
Sensible.
intelligent.
Spargrove's gone out though, and he's always good for a show, isn't he?
So Vinales and Lecona are the fastest, but
Miguel Oliveira in the wet conditions, third fastest on combined times in the dry. He was second fastest this morning. It had rain on Saturday and Sunday.
okay.
But what what checkered flag is out of a mixed second free practice session, and the top 10 positions. Into that top 10, he was 14th before the start of this session. So,
Oliveira, the fastest matches, not just in the dry.
but the first 5 races of the year, they could have been. They just didn't put it all together. Track. The Hervé mentioned engine upgrades. What would that be down there at Tech 3? I know this year, because they can't be expected to have a concession engine forced to only last 7 races. So only
Same. So 7 engines for all the KTMs this season, and they all need to be identical to that one that was homologated at round 1. So you would imagine it's
30 on Sunday. We are qualified from 11 on Saturday. And before that, free practice 3. BT Sport app if you're out and about, or just watch it as a second screen to watch along with your friends. As a watch together feature in Sunday, for example. That's what we've got coming up on BT Sport. Don't forget, we've got Moto2 up next also. Simply because if it starts, they'll have their bike set up for the wet conditions, and so they'll run a few laps, I would have thought. We've only got one bike. We, alongside Miguel Oliveira, worked together, sort of, back in the Moto3 days. He was the race engineer. Challenge for the podium, and that's why he is the championship leader and contender. However, his teammate, who finished last time out, in an upturn in performance from Vinales here this weekend. It's a top 10 running all the way down. You see those riders too. So that will all to be decided tomorrow morning for FP3. For now, we take a break, and when we come back, it's going to be Moto2 Free Practice 2.